The $1,000,000 question: how do entrepreneurs transition from self-employed to owning a business that turns a profit? My name is Chris Waters, and this podcast has the $1,000,000 answer. Welcome to CEO Secrets. Hey guys, it's Chris Waters with CEO Secrets. Welcome to the podcast. I've got Brindley, the founder of Your Realty Leverage, a company focused on helping agents that are trying to build real estate teams create leverage through finding amazingly talented administrative staff and other personnel to help take your business to the next level. Brindley, welcome to CEO Secrets.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
So, Brindley, you were a former KW Maps coach. How long were you how long did you work as a KW Maps coach?
Yeah, so I was a Maps coach for about 3 years, and I'm still an agent with Keller Williams. So we service a lot of agents in Keller Williams, and so yeah.
And what kind of led you to starting this venture of helping other people with real estate businesses find talent?
Yeah, so we actually started about 7 years ago, and the company at the time was a transaction management company, and that's how I started the company. So we were doing about 2,000 real estate transactions a year, everything from contract to close for agents. And about 3.5 years in, I sold the business to my employees and changed the business model for the company. And that's when I realized there was no one out there really training administrative assistants and the operations side of the business. And a lot of agents are really good at selling real estate. They're not so great at building teams just because they haven't been knowledgeable in it. And so that's when we started this model, and we started hiring and training administrative talent, and it's evolved from there.
Cool. And so are you getting virtual assistants or people local in their market?
These are actual local in their market. So we go into their market and we search for talent locally. And then most of our process is done online through video, and they're reviewed by the client. And then at a certain step in the process, we bring them into the office to meet the client.
Are you running job ads and spending the money on those job ads for the client?
Yes, we are actually running the ads. We're sourcing on LinkedIn. We're sourcing with your local Chamber of Commerce and college job boards and all sorts of things.
Cool. So you guys, you run the ads, you create the potential talent leads, and then you're vetting them out, and then you're turning them over on a silver platter.
Yeah, essentially. And so we basically are about leveraging agents' time. We still want them to be a part of the process. We just want to make sure that their time in the process is maximized.
So when you think about like the ideal administrative or operations team member, like what is it you're looking for when you guys are doing these video interviews? Like what kind of, I guess what I'm trying to get down to is like what kind of quality of talent can somebody expect from working with you? And more importantly, like, let's say, for example, they're not at a place where they could hire you quite yet. Can you just like educate people on what it is you're looking for in administrative people, staff, operations staff?
Of course. And I think you really start the conversation with where do you find them? And we talk about in real estate that you want to be prospecting based and you want to be marketing based. So a lot of times we say prospecting based and marketing enhanced. And so it's just the same with searching for talent. You should be marketing for talent and you should be prospecting for talent. So prospecting is getting into your database, talking to people in your database about what you're looking for, describing to them what you're looking for. And then marketing is putting an ad up on Craigslist or Wise Hire or ZipRecruiter or any of the job boards. So that's you marketing it out and waiting for people to come in. The prospecting is you're going out and you're finding the talent. So when you're finding talent or marketing, you're doing either one. It depends on the role that you're hiring for. If you're hiring for a supportive first assistant role or a transaction manager or a listing manager, someone that's going to be doing a lot of data entry, a lot of organization, you want to look for someone that has a track record of organization and structure. Medical coders, legal assistants that have been in real estate. You don't want to go hire someone like you that most likely is a driver or highly gregarious. The business has enough of you, and we want to find someone that is going to do all the things that you don't necessarily like to do and that you're not necessarily, the best at. So, so it all depends on the role. Now, if you're looking for that future CEO and that director of operations, you are going to want someone that's more of a driver. And so you're going to look for someone that is a go-getter and type A and has some of the organization. They're not going to be so much of the carer and the nurturer as say an EA would be. They're going to be more of the driver.
So for the average agent out there doing deals, let's assume they're selling the average home, $200,000 to $400,000, average commission check. At what number of transactions would you encourage them to get an executive assistant?
Yeah, so I would say number one, from your first deal, start using an independent transaction coordinator. If you don't have one, I'm sure Chris will be giving you my information. You can reach out to me. I can find you one in your state. They don't really have to be in your city, just as long as they're in your state. And start that from day one. You don't know what you don't know when you come into real estate. And I think it's best to have someone that does know working on that part of the job for you. And then when you start to get to a point, what will happen is that independent TC, it will start to break even, usually at about anywhere from like 4 to 5 transactions, where you'll be paying half of an admin salary. So you'll want to bring that in so that you can have a full-time admin that does all your marketing, support, appointments, listing packages, all of that. So I say around 2 to 3 transactions, start looking. Right now we have about a 3 to 3.5% unemployment rate. It's the lowest that it's been since the 1960s. So talent is not as easy to find. So I would start looking. Just because you're looking doesn't mean you have to hire. Yet if you find that talent, you may want to hire a little bit sooner so you don't lose them.
Mm-hmm. So what is the next, after you get your first executive assistant, now you're doing, say, 10, 12 transactions, what's the next operations person?
So I do an exercise called an 80-20, and it's based on the Pareto principle, Pareto was an economist, mid-century economist that worked in an Italian village, and he decided to measure the wealth in his village. And what he discovered was that 80% of the wealth in his village came from 20% of the population. And so when we talk about the 80-20 in an organization, we talk about, 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your activities. So for a real estate agent, typically that 20% is lead generation, lead follow-up, go on appointments, scripts and role play, negotiate contracts, and your assistant is going to do everything else, which is your 80%. So once you have that assistant, you identify what their 20% is, which usually looks like listing management, transaction management, marketing, listing appointments. And then what starts to happen is their 80% starts to grow really, really long. And they have all these other things that they start taking on. And when that list gets so long that they can't focus on their 20%, you're missing a relationship, right? When they can do no more and they can take no more off your plate, it's time to hire that next person. Now, the good news is if you've hired a great EA, they're going to find that next person. You're not going to have to, right, Chris?
Yep.
And we typically say the next hire is going to be a listing manager / transaction coordinator.
Yep.
So
same experience we had. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The trajectory is, get that first contract closed, outsourced company. Then when you get to a point where you're sending them, 5, 6, 7 transactions, and the cost of a salary person is equivalent to what you're paying them, bring it in-house, let that person wear multiple hats. And then once transactions at volumes like 10, 12, then the listing manager / transaction coordinator. So same exact thing we found.
Same thing. And what we're finding also is that given, technology and AI, customer experience is becoming our competitive advantage. And so what we want to really do is we want to streamline the process for our client. And so we're seeing more of a list to close model where you bring in that first person to do everything from list to close for buyers and sellers. And then your next hire, you hire a buy-side transaction coordinator. So your sellers are dealing with the same person from time the listing is taken all the way through close.
Yep.
They're not going from agent to listing manager to transaction manager.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I think you can alienate the consumer if they're talking to too many people.
100%. And you're wasting labor because that transaction coordinator is having to get to know that seller and re-establish a relationship where if the listing manager takes it all the way through, they already have the relationship and the contract process becomes very easy on the sell side.
So seeing as you're in the KW network, probably have read the book, The One Thing.
Yeah.
When you think about the one thing, when it comes specifically to the selection process of selecting somebody, I know you said you guys go through this like video interview thing and you probably have a process, but like, what is the one secret? Like the one thing that makes everything else unnecessary? Like what's the one thing you do to help make sure you're dialing into like super talented people on the administrative side? Like what's that one tactic or strategy to the selection process?
Time on task. Time on task. It's what happens is that we're quick to hire and we're slow to fire most of the time, agents are. And the reason they bring us in is because we can take the time to really dive into talent, and we're not doing it quickly. We're not pulling a trigger just because we have a need, right? What happens with a lot of agents is it's like, I call it the life raft, right? They bring someone in because they're drowning and they expect them to be their life raft. And then what happens is when someone that's going down, right, reaches up for someone that's going to save them, what happens? The person ends up coming down with them and they quit because they're overwhelmed because it wasn't the right individual. And so it's time on task. And then also I would add to that, have your 5 non-negotiables. What are the 5 things that you absolutely want in that hire? Is it organization? Is it personality? Is it customer service? What are those 5 things? And measure everything against those 5 things. And that will help your vetting process, so to speak. It will also help you explain to people what you're looking for. Hey, I'm looking for someone that's highly organized, social, loves people, is customer service driven. Who do you know that wants an opportunity?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So for example, an EA, in the beginning stage for a new agent, probably will have limited interactions with the customer. So, customer service may be kind of important, but more about them being highly organized, taking action, and keeping the rainmaker going. But your transaction coordinator, one of their 5 need to be customer service because they spend a lot of time talking to the client.
Yes. And I think it's also, you want to remember to hire to your blind spots. So you may be an agent that's not highly gregarious and you need an EA that is. Most of the time you probably don't, yet I just want to say that so you're really thinking about, okay, what is it that I need in my business? It's going to make me look like a rock star and allow me to sell as much real estate as possible.
Something that just came to me is you mentioned that one secret is time on task. So you guys spend more time than any agent will on finding the talent. Yeah. But again, like specific to the process itself, like in the actual video interview, beyond time on task, like is there any like thing you do? Like something I'm really inspired by is, you turn on the Discovery Channel and you watch like the Navy SEAL training they go through for 6 months. And it's this crazy vetting process. Like, is there any specific like vetting strategy you have or tactic that helps find the right people?
Absolutely. So things I'll look for on a resume to vet people on a resume is first and foremost spelling and grammar mistakes. If they've jumped around from a lot of jobs, so if they've held a lot of positions for less than 2 years, we will weed them out. Now, with that said, we find, Chris, I think you and I are probably similar in the time that we were raised. Back when we were applying for jobs like out of college in our first and second positions, if you didn't hold a job longer than 2 years, you were a job hopper and you were out. Yeah. With the millennial now, they actually say that it's a good thing to see them moving on 2 to 3 years, as long as they're moving to a bigger opportunity in their career. So you really don't, you want to say if it's 2+ years, dig deep and find out why they moved. If it's less than 2 years, then that you can use as a filter. Once you know that it's someone that from their resume has the track record, check them out on LinkedIn, check them out on Facebook, save yourself time. We had one this morning that had a nose ring in her ear, in her nose, like this big. And not that that's bad. It's just the client we were hiring for is in a different environment, and that wouldn't be okay in that environment. So you just want to make sure that you save yourself time. And then I recommend doing a video interview. Just a quick 30-minute, hey, come to video. This is because then you don't have to worry about them coming into the office, greeting them. Like, you're saving yourself time, right? You're also seeing them for the first time. You're seeing their mannerisms. You're seeing how they carry themselves, how they speak. And then I would send them some type of behavioral assessment. So Myers-Briggs, the Enneagram, any of those type of behavioral assessments. So it's really going to dig deep on their behavior so that you can check and see, is their behavior where we want it to be for this role? And that's when I would bring them in for the first time and go over the results with them, verify that, that assessment was accurate. And then go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't want to keep that thought going. I've got something else I want to ask you. I think that is, kind of a hot, not a hot button thing, but specific to virtual assistants.
Yeah.
But finish your thought.
No, and then I was just going to say, then from there, bring in people that know you, that know your personality, know your environment, have them meet with the candidate and give you their feedback. And then also check references. Always check references. Also know that the references they give you are people that they're pretty confident are going to give you good feedback. So always ask, is there anyone else that I can talk to about the candidate?
That's a really good one. Asking the references who to call. That's a good nugget.
Thank you.
So when it comes to virtual assistants is like a really hot button thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are the pros and cons of hiring a VA versus somebody local in your office that sits next to you?
So I always tell people your VA should not be your first hire. If you're doing it because of cost, you're actually going to save yourself more money by waiting until you can have a physical body in your office. And here's why. Because what you're doing is you're basically hiring a Band-Aid for your business because you're not ready for that full-time person, where it's better for you to wait for that full-time person. It's better as an agent to have someone at your hip that you can talk to throughout the day, that you can communicate with. Also, VAs are really good at checking the boxes and the tasks. Now, I'm not saying that they can't eventually work with clients or answer the phones or those type of things, but typically that learning curve is a really long time. So I always recommend making your first hire in office with you. If you work from home, it's okay. If you find the right candidate, they'll work in your home with you. If not, you can meet 1 or 2 days at the office or at a library or a Starbucks to work together. And then let them hire the VA to take some of those checklist type items and data entry, because you don't want to pay someone that, like an assistant salary that's doing data entry. Mm-hmm. So I always say the VA should have someone local that they support. And that way the agent's never having to manage the VA.
Mm-hmm. It's a good nugget.
And you can always interrupt me, Chris. I could geek out and talk about this stuff all day long.
Let's talk about compensation for a minute. So, it seems like compensation really varies based off what market you're in. Are you consulting agents across the country on how much to offer? And are you doing the research on what to pay people to make sure you get a competitive, person?
Yeah, we do. We actually, we research the market area. We look also on Indeed and job boards to see what your competitors in your local market are offering, so that we know what they're seeing when they're going through jobs and looking for opportunities. A lot of times we get caught in this limiting belief, I think it's a limiting belief that my job's so great, why wouldn't people want to be a part of it? Well, what we're finding is the generations now that are working, it's really important to them, the environment that they work in. It's not so much about a salary. With Amazon and Google and these massive companies that are hiring virtually, like, finding a job is not a difficult thing, especially with unemployment so low. What's important to them is where they work, how they can grow, and all of those things. So you really want to make sure that you have all of that. And then with compensation, talent wants to be paid for their talents. The days of paying a real estate assistant $13, $14, $15 an hour aren't really around anymore, and you're not really going to find the talent that you want. We typically say for a strong administrative assistant, you probably want to start at 40,000 in most markets. If you're in a smaller town, smaller market, you may be able to do 35 and also include bonuses. And I don't believe in bonusing on transactions.
How do you set up bonus structure for
on
admin?
profit. So everything should be tied to profit. And they should be helping you achieve profit. If they're taking things off your plate, you can sell more. If they're keeping an eye on expenses, they're cutting expenses and doing expense management. And if they're bonused on profit, you better believe they're going to be watching those expenses. And they're also going to be holding you accountable to appointments.
Any certain percentage you recommend? And what if you have multiple admin people?
Yeah, so you could actually, what I always say is look at your profit first, make sure that there is an opportunity there. If you're in the red all the time, then it might be more in the beginning, bonusing them to get you out of the red. And then, we see anywhere from 1% to 3% paid quarterly. The reason I say quarterly is because most of your administrators' stability and getting that paycheck every 2 weeks is really important to them. So annual bonuses aren't going to excite them as much as every quarter. And then they're seeing that bonus every quarter. So they're engaged and they're like, okay, what can I do in the next 90 days to get profit up?
Are you a big proponent of like publicly sharing financials with the business to everybody on the team?
I think it depends on the financial and if you're ready to be an open book company. I truly believe that if you want people to be a part of your growth and building, that being an open book company is important. I think that you want people that understand that each of us play a role, and as a business owner, we play a role. And I think sometimes it can also show them how little we're actually making as we grow this business and how much we're investing in them. I mean, there's plenty of times when my company started that I didn't take payroll so that our people could be paid. So I think you just want to be careful that it's with the right motive and then it doesn't end up kind of backfiring on you.
What about if you have a really successful business and people see you have this huge net profit? Do you think there's any fear that your employees will come to you saying, I want more money?
I think that you're going to deal with that regardless. People know you're successful just by the business that you have. I think with the profit, if you're sharing in the profits, I don't think that it will hurt you. If you're not sharing in the profits, you probably don't want to show them.
If you think about their bonuses and as a percentage of their salary, let's say they make 40 grand, and they're working at a company that's doing well. How much would you hope that person could get paid in bonuses over the course of the year to make what's their final on target earnings with bonuses?
Yeah. So it really
as a percentage.
Yeah. So typically we want 25% or more in profit. So I would say it's going to all depend on the profit. As far as a percentage, I would probably say, it could be anywhere from 10 to 25% up to 50, really, depending on how fast the company grows and how much profit the company is making. Now, I have admin that have been working for their teams for 6-7 years and they're making over 100K, but the company is also making a lot of profit. They're at a 40-50% profit margin. I also had an admin, this is one of my favorite stories. She wanted to make more money. And so she went to her boss and she said, hey, if I transfer all of our corporate credit cards to a cash back credit card, can I keep the money? And she added like $2,000 a month to her income just by doing cashback rewards. The reason I tell you that is talent will figure out ways to make more money without just asking for it, right? They'll come to you and they'll say, I deserve this amount of money because I'm doing X, Y, Z, and I've brought this much in for the company. Because everybody has an ROI.
Cool. So, wow. So somebody could, if you're making 40 and you offer potentially a 50% bonus of their salary, they could make 60K.
Yeah, easily.
So maybe set some metrics around like, you get this percentage when we hit this like 25% profit, this percentage we hit 30, 35.
100%. And then, you can Google profit share pools. A lot of companies do a pool for profit share based on your tenure, how long you've been there. what your current salary is. And so you're also able to share profit through profit pool.
Got it. Huh, that's interesting. Have you heard of the book, The Great Game of Business?
I have heard of that book. I haven't read it, but I've heard of it. It's on my list. It's in my Audible.
Yeah, it's a fascinating book. The author talks about these guys that were engineers that were employees at this company that was failing. And they put all their chips in massive amounts of risk, and they created an ESOP, employee stock ownership plan. So you said you have a real estate team in Tampa, Florida, and you sold it.
Real estate team. I had a transaction management business that I ended up actually giving in a way to my employees, and they're all independent TCs now. So that's kind of where my career started. So that's why I said if you need an independent TC, I'm pretty connected there, so I can find you one.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to add, Chris, was what was I going to say? I was going to say something about talent and growing your business. I don't remember what it was. It'll come to me in a minute, though.
Hey, guys, if you're watching, we've got a lot of people watching this on Facebook Live right now. Feel free to chime in on the comments section if you have any questions. Throw out any questions in the comment section, anything you have for Brindley. Just chime in on the comment section if you got any questions for her.
I know what it was. You always want to have clear, defined metrics for your people. So for instance, a admin should be tied to reviews, referrals, customer feedback surveys, agent, if you have a team, agent feedback surveys, because everything should be tied to a metric. So it's an admin's job to move you from X to Y by Z. And everything can be measurable and quantifiable in the role. So that way, when you have to have a performance conversation, it never is personal. It's about the result. We agreed that this was the expectation. You understood that this was the expectation, and this is where we're at. So what do we need to do to help you get to where we need to be?
Let me ask you something. What do you think, specific to reviews?
Yeah.
What do you think about telling the agent and the admin person, one, the agent doesn't get paid their commission check and the admin person doesn't get any bonuses unless they get a review on every closing? Is that too intense? This is an idea somebody threw at me, and I'm like, kind of on the fence. It's a little intense, but it also, online reviews is super, super important nowadays.
And here's the way, here's what I think about it, right? Like, you're paid your base salary on the admin side. You're paid your base salary to perform the job that you've been given, the job description, so to speak, right? You're paid bonuses because you go above and beyond the job. So I kind of go to the rule of thinking of how, a coach coaches is the consequence shouldn't matter because not hitting the goal isn't an option, right? I should be able to say you have to pay $10,000 if you don't get reviews, because if you commit and make a commitment to getting 80% of your closings a review online, then you're going to do whatever it takes to get there, right? Now, you also don't want to intimidate them. And remember, with admin, when you mess with their money, you're messing with their stability. And that's something that could cause them to leave. So you could bonus them on a scale based on metrics, right? That it's this much in profit, you've gotten this many reviews, and you could have qualifications for the bonus. But I don't know that I would necessarily threaten the bonus, if that makes sense. Or make it feel, it may not be a threat, but it could be perceived as a threat.
Yeah. It's a good little nugget. Yeah, we got a lot of people watching. So guys, I'm looking at the Facebook thread. Feel free to throw in any comments. Steve Nickerson says hello. Hey, buddy. Cool. So I guess if people want to, find out what it costs and, they want to talk to you more about working with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website, Your Realty Leverage, yourrealtyleverage.com. You can also email me, Brindley, BRINDLEY, at yrltalent.com.
Okay, so I'm going to put that in the chat box for everybody to see. And then I'm also going to put this in the Facebook comment thread.
I'll put my email in here, Chris.
For you guys that are watching this right now, and you're watching it on maybe you're watching on iTunes or YouTube, you're watching this podcast. We have a private Facebook group. It's invite only. It's called the Chris Waters Rainmaker Alliance, and we record these live if you guys want to check them out. But what's like? Is there anything specifically? You feel like I know you gave me that answer. Like the thing that differentiates you is time on task, but what else is the big differentiator with Your Realty Leverage besides time on task?
Yeah. So for us, it's, we go through a very thorough process. Also, we're able to get out of conversation with people a lot faster than agents are. So for agents, they could spend a lot of time talking to the wrong people. And because we're the middleman, we're able to easily get out of conversation. I would also add too, hiring is only about, I would say, 30% of the process. 30% I would say is the hiring, and then 30% is how you onboard and train them, and then 30% is how you retain them. Mm-hmm. So once you've hired the talent, do you have a solid 90-day training plan in place that is going to teach them everything and give them what they need? Now, we also, for our clients, the new hire works with a one-on-one trainer. So we leverage the agent's time through that as well. Yet it's very important to have your 90-day plan of what standards do you want them to meet? What goals? So if you and I, Chris, are sitting here 90 days from now and you're winning in the role, what does that look like to me as your employer?
And so the 90-day like boot camp, for example, is that an outline you're providing? Like what are you doing after you help them find somebody? Are you helping train them up?
Yeah, so we actually work with the client and we come up with a 90-day plan based on the systems in their business. We have a learning management system that we take them through around social media and real estate, marketing, transaction management, all online, and they work one-on-one with a trainer. So they have daily masterminds with admin from all over the country. They have our one-on-one trainer that works with them. The one-on-one trainer is also communicating with the agent to see how things are going on the ground, does their reviews every 30, 60, 90 days with the agent. So again, we know a lot of times, agents are crazy and they do the fire hose training. They just bring them in and here's the fire hose, drink out of it. And so we really help add structure to that process.
Is that the extent? So, I mean, and that's a lot. That's more than what most people do in terms of training. So you handle selection process, teeing them up for the agents, business owners, et cetera. And then you have a coach working with them for 90 days. And you in the learning management system, that's something you log in to learn how to leverage some tools and stuff.
So this is more training than coaching. Okay. So training, they literally have access to a one-on-one trainer all day, every day. Mm-hmm. So this person is holding their hands. They're doing lessons in the online management system. They're taking quizzes, and then the trainer is working with them on learning it.
Got it.
Yeah.
What's your personality profile, Brindley?
So I'm different. I'm a DCI. Okay. So, but my C, it shows up weird. So, I'm in a social setting. I'm very social, very gregarious, but then when I'm alone, I'm very want to be alone and typically are geeking out on spreadsheets and Airtable.
Nice. What were you, if you don't mind me asking, what were you doing prior to KW and having a team and MAPS coaching?
Yeah, so my story is a little bit different. I started working on Wall Street straight out of college. I lived in Manhattan in my 20s, and everything I ever did, I started as an assistant to work, to learn the role. And that's why I really have a passion for admin. So I worked on Wall Street. I sold country club memberships for Club Corp for several years before I got into real estate. That was part of the reason I wanted to get into real estate. I applied for, I don't know how personal you want me to get on this podcast because I know it's
go deep.
But my story is that I at 32 was in a really dark place. And I had moved back home, had nothing to really show for everything I had done in my 20s and all the careers that I had. And I decided that I want to wanted to become a realtor, yet just like everything before, I didn't want to just jump into it. And so I started working as a director of agent services for Keller Williams in South Florida in Tampa. And in February of 2012, I went to my first family reunion with Keller Williams and heard a lot about God Family Business. And the place that I was in was really dark, and I was drinking a lot because I didn't want to feel. I was in a relationship that was not healthy, and I was back home at 32, nothing to show for my life, and just in a really dark place. And I was drinking a lot, and I came back from that family reunion and cried out to God and said, I don't want to live, yet I don't want to die, and I don't know how to get out of my life. And I believe that God, and when I say God, I don't mean a religious, or it's just whatever you think your higher power is. I believe that God whispers, and then he speaks, and then he yells, and then he roars. And he had whispered, he had spoken, he had yelled, and on May 26th of 2012, he roared. I was coming home from an agent's house and had quite a bit to drink, and I made a U-turn in front of a motorcycle, and went to jail that night and got out of jail the next morning and called the police station to find out where my car was. And they said it was being held in investigation of a vehicular homicide. And I looked at my mom and I said, what am I going to do if I killed someone? And my whole life changed that day. He didn't die, thank goodness. I do believe that God knew I would be more useful out here than I would be behind bars. And I got sober. I've been sober now for 8 years. I started my TC business with a Schwinn bike and a laptop. My broker had to let me go, obviously, and a few agents knew that I was looking to make some changes, and they hired me to do marketing for them. And you can imagine, I was facing some pretty big consequences, and they just wanted to help. They had so much grace. And I remember I wanted to, I had a client ask me, will you do contract to close for me? And I was like, well, I can do anything. I can learn anything. I don't know how to do it. And so she audio recorded how to do contract to close. And I would play it over and over and over, teaching myself TC. And I went from the little beach cruiser and the laptop in 3.5 years to a team of 6 doing over 2,000 real estate transactions, and decided that I wanted to help admin become business owners and start thinking like business owners and get rid of the secretary mentality. And that's what I've done ever since. So there you go. That's the story.
That's awesome. That's pretty amazing. That's quite a story of transformation, to say the least.
It hasn't been easy. It's simple, not easy. And I'm pretty open about it now and vulnerable about it because, if it helps one person make some changes, if I ever drink again, someone will die, because that was my saving grace. So
do you feel like administrative staff, do you feel like they can get into a place where they actually own a business versus owning a job?
I think that they can get into a place of partnering with someone that wants to own a business. There's a great book called Rocket Fuel. If you're thinking about hiring an admin, read Rocket Fuel, because typically admin don't want the responsibility and the risk of owning a business, yet they want to be treated like a partner. Nobody likes to be treated like the secretary or the subordinate. They really want to be treated like a partner, like an equal. So typically the agent's going to be the visionary, right? Like they're going to paint the big picture of where we're going to go. And the admin's going to be your integrator. They're going to say, okay, I see where you want to go, and this is how we can get there, right? And you're probably not going to get there as quickly as you want to, yet I promise you I'll get you there. So I get that question often, like, are they going to see my commission check and, want to know? Because if you hire the right talent, they truly enjoy being an admin. One of the questions I always ask is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And if they say they want to be an agent, tell me more about that. What does that look like to you? And as a business owner, if you're okay with someone coming in for 2 to 3 years and massively building your systems and getting you set up, you might be okay at 4 or 5 years with them becoming an agent. You just have to decide what that looks like and what that path is, and make sure it's a win-win for both people.
A lot of good nuggets you shared, Brindley.
Yeah, well, I hope
Good.
it helps. You guys can always reach out to us too. We're happy to help. We get questions. I get questions all day long. So
So yourrealtyleverage.com. Check it out online. I'm sorry, guys. I'm like, I suck at doing two things at once. And so I've been like trying to look at the comments thread and I'm not doing a very good job. But anyways, thank you, Brindley, so much for being on CEO Secrets.
absolutely.
I can't tell people enough. Like I hired this woman. She was my first admin, and her name was Susan Leonard. And I kind of you get stuck, I think, at somewhere between 25 and 40 transactions. And I mean, literally, I got this administrative assistant that was freaking amazing. And in that subsequent 12 months went from, and I think it was somewhere between 25 and 40 transactions to 100. And then the following year, from 100 to 150, and then 150 to 300, and 300 to 500. And and it was all because of getting being very fortunate with hiring operational staff that helped salespeople be focused on their highest income producing activities. So there's I think anybody watching this, if you have if you're at a place where you feel stuck and you feel like you don't have enough hours in the day, it means you're missing somebody. And so anyways, thank you so much for being on CEO Secrets. You've provided a wealth of knowledge, and
thank you for having me. It's an honor.
I'm so glad you were so transparent. I think these stories of transformation, I think we all go through it, and I share my story of basically being homeless, sleeping on my girlfriend's red IKEA couch after a massive business failure. And so anyways, I really appreciate you sharing that. And guys, if you guys have any questions, I'll maybe I'll just email you, Bradley, or chime in on again, guys. I'll try to get to your comments a little later, and if I don't know the answer, I'll reach out to Bradley. But
yeah, I put my email address in the chat box. So if you want to put that on the Facebook group, you can too.
Okay, cool. And then for those of you guys that are watching this on listening to it on iTunes and you don't have video, her email is Brindley, that's BRINDLEY, at Y like yellow or your, let's see if I'm reading that right. YRL talent.com. And the website is yourrealtyleverage.com. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on, Brindley. This has been amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. Have a great day. Bye, guys.
You too. Bye, everybody.